You never really know what you're capable of until someone tries to take what's yours. That's what I learned the hard way when the Hickory Heights Homeowners Association decided they didn't like the look of a rancher living just beyond their iron-fenced perfection. I suppose they thought I'd roll over, pay their fees, maybe even pack up and sell out quietly. What they didn't realize was that I'm not the kind of man who backs down when threatened, especially not on my own land. My name is Caleb Harlan. I'm 41 years old, a former systems engineer turned off-grid rancher, and I've spent the last 2 years turning 28 acres of neglected Colorado dirt into something I'm damn proud of. Solar panels hum on my roof, goats graze in neat paddocks, and a greenhouse I welded together by hand grows food year-round. I didn't build this life to be told how to live it by people who think matching mailboxes make a community. But that's exactly what happened when they blocked off the only road leading to my property. One morning, without warning, a construction crew showed up and planted a fence across the access road I'd been using since the day I moved in. No conversation, no heads up, just steel concrete and a smug little sign that said private road, residents only. They called it a security measure. I called it a declaration of war. Now, I'm the one collecting fees every time one of their Audis rolls past my toll booth. Funny how quickly the rules change when you know how to wire a payment system. File a lawsuit and weld in the dark. This is the story of how a few HOA bullies learned that some ranchers come with claws and blueprints. I didn't move out to Silver Prairie for the view. I moved for silence, for sovereignty, for the chance to build something with my own hands that no one could take away. After 15 years of high-stress tech contracts and fluorescent lights, I'd had enough. I cashed out my savings, sold the Denver condo, and signed the deed on 28 acres of rough sloping land at the edge of nowhere. There were no paved driveways, no cell towers, and no neighbors peeking through curtains. Just open sky, dry grass, and the stubborn bones of an old weather-beaten barn. The place was a mess when I found it. Broken fence lines, rusted-out tools, buried under sagebrush, and a farmhouse that creaked like it had secrets. But I didn't see what it was. I saw what it could be. I spent every spare hour rebuilding that barn, wiring solar panels, digging irrigation lines, and planting crops that would take their time before giving back. I wasn't chasing comfort. I was chasing resilience. Over time, the land responded. Goats kidded in the spring. The greenhouse yielded tomatoes in December, and neighbors began stopping by for fresh eggs and homemade compost tea. I started running small workshops on off-grid power and DIY farming tools, just casual weekend stuff for folks who wanted to learn. Before long, what I had was more than a ranch. It was a living system. It had a rhythm, a heartbeat. It was mine. That's what made the blockade so personal. It wasn't just about access. It was about control. About someone in a suit deciding my life didn't fit their aesthetic. And if they thought I'd hand over that freedom without a fight, they clearly didn't know the first thing about ranchers or me. The letter came folded tight, stamped with the polished insignia of Hickory Heights HOA. It arrived on a Tuesday, tucked between my seed catalogs and a parts invoice for the solar array I had just installed. The wording was vague, something about a community security improvement proposal, and roadway access concerns to be addressed. I wasn't a member of the HOA, and I sure as hell didn't live in their manicured little world, but I knew that letter was meant for me. For 2 years, I'd been using the same gravel road that cuts across the eastern tip of the neighborhood. It's a legal easement recorded and filed in 1968, giving permanent access from the county road to the parcel I now own. That road predates their community by a good 3 decades, but that didn't seem to matter anymore. I decided to show up, boots dusty flannel, sleeves rolled clipboard in hand, ready to clear up whatever misunderstanding was brewing. The meeting took place in their brand new community center, a building that smelled like fresh paint and artificial vanilla. Inside rows of neatly arranged chairs held residents dressed like catalog models, their expressions hovering somewhere between polite disdain and quiet panic. Then he walked in. Bradley Connors had the kind of presence you don't forget: tall, tanned, salt and pepper hair combed with precision, and a smile that could curdle milk. He wore an expensive navy blazer, a real estate developer's confidence, and the kind of cologne you could smell. 3 chairs over, flanking him, was Martha Griggs, clutching her HOA-issued tablet like it held the launch codes for a missile. They breezed through landscaping updates, barbecue plans, and then like a venom slip hidden in candy came the announcement: a new security gate would be installed at the neighborhood's southern exit, the one that led to my ranch. A sleek, camera-equipped, stone-columned barricade designed to protect property values and ensure resident peace. And just like that, I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a maneuver. When I stood to remind them of my easement, Bradley didn't blink. He smiled, adjusted his cufflinks, and said easements were under review due to updated community infrastructure plans. But if I wanted continued access, I could apply for a gate pass, $3,000 per year, non-negotiable. That was the moment it became clear this wasn't about security. It was about pushing me out. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of machinery echoing through the valley like a slow, rolling avalanche. I pulled on my boots, grabbed my jacket, and stepped outside just as the sun broke over the ridge. The cool Colorado air was sharp with diesel and dust. Down the hill, at the southern edge of my land, I saw them, a construction crew, yellow excavator steel posts, concrete mixers, and at the center of it all, an 8-foot metal gate rising right across the old access road. No warning, no permit posted, no courtesy. Knock on the door. Just steel, slicing through soil that had been mine long before Bradley Connors ever drove a golf cart through his manicured subdivision. I rushed down the gravel path, my boots slipping slightly on loose rock, heart hammering with a quiet fury. The workers said they were just following orders. They wouldn't stop, wouldn't show me paperwork, wouldn't even look me in the eye. By the time I got back to the house, a glossy HOA envelope had already been slid under my front door. Inside was a plastic keycard marked temporary, 7 days. Below it, a note in stiff language that read more like a ransom letter than a courtesy. Permanent access contingent on full payment of annual fee. Processing time, 5 to 7 business days. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just about a gate. It was about pressure, about making things just difficult enough to get me to give up. I called Rachel Lynn that afternoon. She was an old college friend, now a real estate attorney with a stubborn streak that had only gotten sharper with time. I explained everything while pacing my kitchen floor, my eyes darting toward the window as if expecting another bulldozer to arrive. She told me what I already suspected. If my easement was filed correctly, what they'd done was illegal. But fighting it would take weeks, maybe months. Her advice was clear. Document everything. Photos, notes, names, dates. If they blocked me entirely, call the sheriff. They thought I was just a farmer. They forgot I was also an engineer with a long memory, a shorter fuse, and a fully charged battery bank. I didn't sleep much that night. The image of that gate burned behind my eyelids every time I closed them, steel and concrete cutting into years of effort, like it was nothing. Just before dawn, I threw on my coat and walked the southern boundary of my land. Flashlight in hand, survey papers rolled under my arm. Something about the fence's angle had been bothering me, a barely noticeable curve that didn't match my memory of the line. With each step, I grew more certain. By the time the sun rose over Silver Prairie, I'd confirmed it. The HOA's precious new gate, the one they were so proud of, wasn't entirely on their land. The concrete base of the mechanism extended about 3 feet past the legal property line onto mine. 3 feet. That's all. But it was everything. I pulled out the original survey I'd kept from when I bought the land and double-checked against the latest satellite overlays. Then I called Rachel. She took a look and let out the kind of slow exhale that said, "This changes everything." According to Colorado property law, they had built a permanent structure on my land without consent. And that gave me leverage, real legal leverage. I could demand its removal, sue for trespassing, or I could get creative. That's when the idea hit me. If they could put up a gate and demand I pay them to access my legal easement, what stopped me from doing the same? If they claimed authority over a road that partly passed through my land, then maybe it was time I started charging them for the privilege. I called Ryan Brewer, a local contractor. I trusted the same guy who helped reinforce my barn. After the windstorm last winter, I showed him the line markers and the surveys. His response was simple. Let's build it before they figure out they messed up. For the next 48 hours, my ranch became a construction zone. Under the cover of dusk and the hum of portable generators, we got to work. I pulled schematics from old electronics projects and programmed a custom payment system using salvaged parts from my solar array backups. We framed and built a compact but professional-looking toll booth, planted a sturdy lifting arm gate, and posted signage that looked official enough to pass for state-level private road. Access fee, $20 per crossing. Monthly pass, $100. I printed the signs at a local print shop owned by a man who'd once been fined by the same HOA for having a non-compliant birdhouse. He printed them for free. By sunrise, Sunday, the booth stood tall, solar-powered motion, activated with a bright little card reader and an automatic arm I could raise from my phone. Legal, documented, and planted squarely on my 3 feet of land. They'd tried to fence me out. I had just fenced them in. By mid-morning Sunday, the booth was live. The sun had barely risen over the hills when the first car crept down the hill from Hickory Heights, hesitated at the unfamiliar structure, and rolled to a stop in front of the gate arm. I watched from a distance, leaning against my truck with a steaming mug of coffee in hand. The driver, an older man in a golf polo, looked around confused, then noticed the bold sign posted on the side of the booth. Private road. Access fee, $20. Per crossing monthly pass, $100. He paid. with a credit card. No argument. The second car followed, then a third. Some drivers protested. Some laughed in disbelief, and a few turned around in frustration. But most paid. By noon, word had spread, like prairie fire. Phones were out. Pictures were being taken. Social media buzzed. I kept things polite. No shouting, no grandstanding. I wore a clean shirt and a rancher's cap. I handed out printed receipts. I even offered bottled water to one exasperated woman in a Lexus. People could be upset, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of catching me out of line. Then Patricia showed up. Her SUV came barreling down the slope, stopped just short of the gate, and idled furiously. She rolled down her window, face red, voice shrill. I couldn't hear every word over the engine, but I caught the gist. Illegal, harassment, cease and desist. She refused to pay, pulled off to the side of the road, and began rapid-firing messages on her phone. I didn't say a word, just nodded and waved pleasantly toward the clearly posted property survey taped to the booth window. 40 minutes later, Bradley Connors arrived, dressed like he was going to a real estate gala instead of a roadside standoff. He marched toward the booth, his voice rising before he even reached the barrier. I stayed where I was, calm, hands in my vest pockets, watching him spin himself into a lather. He threatened lawsuits, screamed about public roads, and accused me of extortion. That's when the sheriff arrived, Deputy Raymond Clark, a solid man with boots like mine and the kind of weathered patience you only find in rural law enforcement. I'd met him before, years back during a livestock theft scare. He listened to both sides. I handed over my property survey, easement documentation receipts, and a letter from Rachel stating the legality of my structure. Bradley flailed, waving his arms and demanding an arrest. Clark reviewed the paperwork, walked the property line, and then gave his verdict with quiet certainty. This was private land, and I was within my rights. If Bradley had an issue with the property lines, he could take it to civil court. Then Clark tipped his hat to me, returned to his cruiser, and drove off. Bradley stood there, jaw clenched, face red, sweat beading at his hairline. He had come expecting victory. What he got was the cold edge of reality and the first real consequence of pushing too far. I figured they wouldn't take the deputy's verdict lying down, and I was right. By Monday morning, I received a certified letter from a downtown law firm with a name longer than a feed invoice. Inside, a cease and desist order, allegations of public nuisance zoning violations, and an accusation that I was operating a commercial enterprise on residential adjacent property. The tone was firm. The intent was intimidation. I forwarded it straight to Rachel. She read it, laughed once, then sent back a bullet point breakdown explaining why it was nothing more than legal bluster. My structure wasn't a business. It was a toll point on private land, tied directly to the encroachment of my easement. No laws broken, no violations found. Meanwhile, Bradley launched what he probably considered a PR campaign. Pamphlets started showing up in mailboxes around Hickory Heights, warning residents about unapproved construction and a dangerous individual exploiting a legal loophole. He gave interviews to their community, Facebook page, moderators painting me as a rogue squatter, poisoning neighborhood values with rural stubbornness and grease-stained rebellion. But the tide didn't turn the way he hoped. Residents were tired of paying me and the HOA just to get home. They were embarrassed by the growing number of posts, pictures, and memes circulating about a $20 driveway in the richest zip code this side of Denver. Some even began stopping by the booth to chat, asking questions about solar panels or jokingly requesting punch cards for loyalty discounts. Word traveled fast. Then came the footage. A little past 2 a.m. One Wednesday, 3 figures in dark hoodies approached the toll booth. My motion lights clicked on. Then the cameras captured them, prying at the panel, spray painting the lens, and attempting to rip wires from the conduit box. They didn't know I'd installed backup cameras, set low and hidden in the grass. And the face those backups caught crystal clear, Bradley Connors mid-swing with a crowbar in his hand. I had the footage. I had the timestamp. And I had no plans of keeping it private. I didn't wait long. By Thursday morning, the video was uploaded to every major neighborhood forum, emailed to the entire HOA mailing list, and posted across social media with a simple caption, "Caught on camera. HOA president or midnight vandal." The reaction was immediate. Outrage swept through Hickory Heights like a dust storm tearing through dry wheat. Comments flooded in residents, demanding answers, calling for Bradley's resignation, questioning every decision made in the past year. The image of their so-called community leader, caught red-handed with a crowbar under cover of night, was more than embarrassing. It was radioactive. Zoe Castor, a reporter from the county's independent news site, reached out that afternoon. She'd been following the toll booth saga from afar, but the footage tipped the scales. By Friday, her article went live. Front page titled, "When the HOA Crossed the Line, Toll Booth Justice in Silver Prairie." It covered everything: the easement, the gate, the property survey, the footage, and Bradley's simmering vendetta. I didn't need to spin the story. The facts spoke loud enough. At the emergency HOA meeting that weekend, held in a hastily rearranged backyard after someone canceled the community center, booking dozens of residents showed up with printed copies of the video. Still frames. Bradley tried to defend himself, calling the footage fake, a deep fake smear job, but no one was buying it. Martha sat beside him, eyes low, silent as stone. When residents demanded to know why thousands in legal fees were being spent on a vendetta against a lawful property owner, she finally spoke, only to announce her resignation. Bradley didn't resign. He stormed out. The HOA board scheduled a recall vote for the following week. By then, I had already pressed charges for trespassing and property damage, and Rachel filed a formal complaint, citing harassment and unlawful interference with recorded easement access. Bradley had built a gate to box me in. Now, the box was closing on him. I didn't wait long. By Thursday morning, the video was uploaded to every major neighborhood forum, emailed to the entire HOA mailing list, and posted across social media with a simple caption, "Caught on camera. HOA president or midnight vandal." The reaction was immediate. Outrage swept through Hickory Heights like a dust storm tearing through dry wheat. Comments flooded in residents demanding answers, calling for Bradley's resignation, questioning every decision made in the past year. The image of their so-called community leader, caught red-handed with a crowbar under cover of night, was more than embarrassing. It was radioactive. Zoe Castor, a reporter from the county's independent news site, reached out that afternoon. She'd been following the toll booth saga from afar, but the footage tipped the scales. By Friday, her article went live. Front page titled, "When the HOA Crossed the Line, Toll Booth Justice in Silver Prairie." It covered everything: The easement, the gate, the property survey, the footage, and Bradley's simmering vendetta. I didn't need to spin the story. The facts spoke loud enough. At the emergency HOA meeting that weekend, held in a hastily rearranged backyard after someone canceled the community center, booking dozens of residents showed up with printed copies of the video, still frames. Bradley tried to defend himself, calling the footage fake, a deep fake smear job, but no one was buying it. Martha sat beside him, eyes low, silent as stone. When residents demanded to know why thousands in legal fees were being spent on a vendetta against a lawful property owner, she finally spoke, only to announce her resignation. Bradley didn't resign. He stormed out. The HOA board scheduled a recall vote for the following week. By then, I had already pressed charges for trespassing and property damage. And Rachel filed a formal complaint, citing harassment and unlawful interference with recorded easement access. Bradley had built a gate to box me in. Now the box was closing on him.